One Piece Chapter 1081, titled Kuzan, 10th Captain of the Blackbeard Pirates, picks up right where the last one left off. Vice Admiral Garp just leveled a huge area of the pirate island Hachinosu with his hockey-enhanced attack, Galaxy Impact. Still soaring through the sky, it was unclear where exactly his battleship would land. As the island's many pirate inhabitants were ragdolled by this destructive attack, Garp continued to clench his hockey-infused fist as he maintained a glorious smile over a now far more darkened and intimidating face. This monstrous display obliterated the many surrounding buildings that now threatened to crush the pirates. Rear Admiral Prince Gruss would suddenly make use of the same Clay Devil Fruit ability we'd seen last chapter to protect a now stationary and grounded Garp from his own ship while also softening its landing. But even this wasn't exactly a smooth ride for those on board like Tashigi and Helmeppo, who were clearly holding on for dear life. Meanwhile, the pirates were in shambles, with only a few still able to complain, mostly aiming at Garp's old age. After a successful landing, the many Marines on board would collectively ready their rifles as massive flames would sprout up behind them. Threatening to end the pirates for even the slightest bit of resistance, it was clear that these guys all meant business. Just goes to show how beloved Kobe is by his peers. Garp, despite having just decimated the overwhelming majority of the island's forces with a single punch, was surprisingly disappointed and frustrated by his own performance. That's right, after giving us one of the most impressive feats in One Piece history, Garp was convinced that he's really lost his touch compared to his younger days. That is ridiculous. Even the remaining pirates couldn't believe their ears. The nerve of this guy. The legends of One Piece are clearly in a league of their own. Back during the days of the Pirate King, Goldie Roger, it's hard to imagine just how strong Garp must have been. He'd probably one-shot Kaido or something. No wonder the world government never decided to punish this guy. I mean, how could they? Rushing forward, Kobe had Lieutenant Commander Hibari behind him as he called out to Garp, who was happy to see that his precious protege was still alive and well. While back on the ship, Helmeppo was crying his eyes out with tears of joy, happy to know that Kobe was safe and sound. Rear Admirals Kujaku and Prince Gruss were now together, and based on their reactions, it doesn't seem like this sort of powerful display is unusual for Garp. Kujaku would point out how troublesome Garp can be, while Gruss was more focused on the words Garp shared before delivering his attack. That not only is Kobe his protege, but according to Garp, he's also the future of the Marines. A pretty bold claim for maybe the most legendary Marine of all time. Something that inspired Gruss to work even harder so that Kobe wouldn't be able to surpass him. But Kujaku had a greater appreciation for the bond shared between Garp and Kobe as master and student, believing it to be wholesome and cute. As several of the Marines on the battleship began to call out to Kobe, he'd take notice of who exactly was on board. And he was surprised to see that Tashigi was among the forces that came to save him. For a non-sword member like Tashigi to join in on this operation was especially touching. So that's our confirmation that she is still a regular Marine. And at that, I'm curious if you guys think that she'll get in trouble for this. After all, they're engaging the crew of a Yonko without permission or clearance. But then again, maybe it's a don't ask, don't tell kind of thing. But before everyone could get too cozy, Hibari would tell Garp that Kobe still isn't safe since he's still shackled. As just then, Garp's eyes would widen, perhaps due to being able to see into the future like other users of Conqueror's Haki. Because just as she called out for help, mid-motion, Hibari was frozen solid. Simultaneously, Kobe and Kujaku would cry out for their comrade in utter horror. But it was the grim expression of Garp that said everything. Aside from Blackbeard himself, this was quite possibly the worst person who could have shown up. The former Admiral of the Marines, Kuzan, was here. Garp would say Kuzan's name aloud first, as Kobe would hold on to his chilled friend and desperately demand that she be unfrozen immediately. This sudden turn of events was certainly pleasing to the remaining pirates that would immediately begin to cheer the Iceman on. According to him, it'd be a bad look if Kobe manages to escape while Blackbeard is gone. Panic and nervousness began to set in for the young Marine, while Garp appeared to be conflicted and incredibly serious. The laughter and smile he had before are completely gone. From here, we get a flashback that finally reveals how and why Kuzan joined Blackbeard's crew. As we all know, 2 years ago, the then Admirals Akainu and Aokiji fought each other on Punk Hazard for several days over the position of Fleet Admiral. This new story takes place about a year later on an island in the New World. Unsure of what was going on, but certain that the Yonko Blackbeard was involved, the people of this island would begin to panic and attempt to escape a potential danger. Abruptly busting into a nearby tavern, Blackbeard himself saw no point in wondering who was responsible for his most recent frustration. According to him, there was only one person in the world who could have possibly done such a thing. And there he was, sitting down and having a drink by his lonesome. Aokiji. As outside, several of Blackbeard's forces were frozen solid, including the Titanic-sized Sanwan wolf, who surprisingly isn't the first giant to have been frozen solid by the power of Kuzan's devil fruit. Blackbeard wanted to know why Kuzan didn't and insisted that they be unfrozen. But Blackbeard was a bit too loud for Kuzan at the moment. He'd also warned Blackbeard that using the power of his Quake fruit might accidentally shatter his friends outside, which just goes to show how fearsome this Logia power can really be. They are the most coveted devil fruits in the entire world for good reason. Kuzan was sure that as their captain, Blackbeard must know all too well how his men can be. It wasn't like he was the one that picked a fight with them. He simply retaliated and defended himself. Besides, after what happened against Akainu, which was bound to have reached Blackbeard by then, Kuzan was pretty heartbroken and in a bad mood. A statement that would be amplified by his cold, piercing eyes. But not too long after that, Kuzan actually did unfreeze Blackbeard's crew, as Wolf was now outside munching on a Sea King-sized fish. Meanwhile, Kuzan and Blackbeard were now drinking buddies, laughing their heads off and wishing they had more booze to enjoy here, as if Wolf himself didn't have enough to cause a major flood. Kuzan was in the middle of telling Blackbeard and his 9 captains the story of his fierce battle against Akainu as they eagerly awaited the continuation, wondering what Akainu said next. Apparently, Akainu was upset that the two of them grew up together in the Marines and now they had to kill each other, saying that it makes his blood boil, which Kuzan furiously blamed on Akainu's magma, which made Avalo Pizarro cry of laughter. And man, enjoying good food, knocking back drinks, laughing, and telling stories. The Blackbeard pirates were getting down like we've never seen from them before, and I love it. This was a really humanizing moment for the crew of criminals that made me like their group even more than I already did. Kuzan would then show them how he had lost a leg thanks to Akainu, now having to use his ice to replace it, which we first saw years ago with Film Z. That's some hardcore battle damage, especially by One Piece standards. Unless we're talking about Shanks losing his arm to a Sea King, despite rarely killing them with his bare hands while swimming from the Calm Belt to Amazon Lily at 76 years old. Or Eustace Kid losing his arm to Shanks' crew while Shanks himself never even showed up. Okay, on second thought, maybe losing a limb in this series isn't that impressive after all. They'd wonder if Kuzan managed to take an arm from Akainu, which he didn't, but he was pretty confident that the new fleet admiral was pretty banged up afterwards. And on the topic of injuries, Katarina Devon would chime into Blackbeard that Kuzan might know something about the man marked by flames, a mysterious figure we first heard about at the end of Wano. Jesus Burgess, whose face had not been crushed at this point, would explain that there are 4 extremely rare red poneglyphs. Kaido and Big Mom each had 1, which according to Blackbeard meant that 2 of them were still at large and up for grabs. But they heard a rumor that the man marked by flames has 1, which Kuzan responded to puzzled, while exposing his own scars, mistakenly believing that they were talking about him. Lafayette would add that the man marked by flames is said to be found on a pitch black ship. What's more is that if anyone sails near it, their ship ends up swallowed by massive whirlpools, which may very well be a devil fruit ability, which is crazy. The idea of a water-based devil fruit is unbelievable, so perhaps it's a bit more complicated than just that. And listen, the fact that this devil fruit informed crew has no idea if it is or isn't such a power is pretty exciting. Shiryu's theory was that the man marked by flames is with the government. Everyone knows that they're not exactly saints, so it wouldn't be too much of a shocker if they were keeping such rare poneglyphs to themselves. After all, it would be the perfect way to keep any pirate from ever getting their hands on the One Piece, which is something plenty of fans have speculated over the years. Kuzan couldn't deny the possibility, but in his experience, the poneglyphs hold nothing but awful memories for him. He didn't recall ever seeing any red poneglyphs back on Ohara. What he did remember was a close friend of his taking a stand against the world government. And I'm pretty sure that he's talking about Saul here. And that was along with the traumatized eyes of a young Nico Robin, a sight that made him take matters into his own hands. A sad story that wasn't really in line with the previous tone. Meanwhile, Lafayette would begin whispering to Blackbeard, wondering what he wanted to do. Kuzan's devil fruit was way too useful, so stealing it would be major for them. But even after many drinks, Kuzan was as keen as ever and noticed this completely. And just like that, the fighting would resume as Kuzan promised to send them all back to the Ice Age. He heard that they were hunting devil fruits and was down for a fight. But Blackbeard did not share his enthusiasm at all. In a panic, he'd say that his buddy was just being dumb, that he wasn't planning on taking Kuzan's devil fruit at all. In fact, he wanted him to join his crew. Despite the disapproval of his minions, Blackbeard would outstretch his hand towards Kuzan, who in only a moment managed to freeze several of them. Kuzan was pretty much out of a job and had no other prospects. Besides, Blackbeard lives by a different definition of justice. But Kuzan wasn't so easily won over. Just a few drinks wouldn't be enough. But that's when Blackbeard knew that he had the former admiral. With his expression changed, Blackbeard would tell Kuzan that his idea of pirates is all wrong. They're not just a bunch of friends bumming around and causing trouble. They all work together towards their own agendas. That's what truly makes them pirates. Now that Kuzan was free, the real question was what he wants to do. And it seems like in the present, Kuzan was again contemplating what he really wanted to do. From which point Garp would then call out to Kuzan with 3 orders. 1. Unfreeze Hibari. 2. Let them take Kobe. And 3. Get back in uniform. As Kuzan, officially revealed to be the 10th captain of the Blackbeard Pirates, prepared himself for battle, he'd comment on how Garp was still as direct as ever. Something he always loved about the old man. And it was for that very reason that he refused to follow any of those orders. He's decided to live life on his own terms. Having said all that, he swiftly launched his ice ball technique, encasing the elderly man in exactly that. Kuzan was taking this fight very seriously. To win, it would take Garp killing his #1 protege to save his new favorite. And I really need you all to recognize what he said right here. That if Garp really wanted to, he could certainly kill Kuzan. And it's not too hard to imagine, as thanks to his obscene hockey abilities, Garp was completely unfazed by Kuzan's first attack. Upset, Garp would recall telling Kuzan to live in the now. Launching himself faster than the human ice pop could react, Garp managed to clutch onto the face of his former student with his hockey-infused hands while telling him that only weaklings lose their way, plunging him down like it was nothing, which was then followed up by yet another cataclysmic strike, this time by the name of Blue Hole, which sent Kuzan deep beneath the surface of the earth, maybe with enough force to remind him of the last Marine that handed him an L, on account of all the magma down there. But moving on, we'd have yet another epic fight to see the continuation of. As on Winter Island, Blackbeard caught his breath while basking in his own overwhelming victory as Law's hat laid bloody before him. The Polar Tang, submarine, and ship of the Heart Pirates has been completely and utterly destroyed. As while it sunk to the bottom of the ocean, so too did the Heart Pirate crew. Laughing, Blackbeard would declare that without a ship, Law and his men couldn't even call themselves pirates anymore, and definitely could not escape. As on the ground bloodied were Law and Beppo. Here, Blackbeard would let Law know that the owners of the 100 hearts he stole at Rocky Port are living on Hachinosu, and if he brings back Law's heart, they'll probably throw a massive party. As secretly, Beppo was in the middle of eating something that Chopper made for him. There wasn't a guarantee that it would work, but at this point, they were all out of options. From there, Blackbeard would only wonder how best to use Law's devil fruit. It's one of the most expensive devil fruits in the world, so they could sell it. Or they could use it. And Blackbeard even knows about its ultimate ability to make another person immortal at the expense of the user's own life. So they might just torture him into doing that. But just then, Beppo began to change, as suddenly he would assume his Sulong form, revealing his full power for the first time as he told them to stay away from Law while striking Blackbeard and Van Augur. A mink going Sulong without a full moon was unheard of and caught them all completely off guard. And listen, I know this is Beppo's moment, and honestly we did clown him, so shout out to him for doing the damn thing, but I'm really impressed by Chopper. From minks to Zoan users, this little guy is seriously a genius. He's given the members of Mads a run for their money. Beppo would then hurl several boulders at their enemies before making his way to sea while carrying Law. The now defeated captain would tell Beppo to go back, that they can't abandon their crew. Beppo, who had now returned to his normal form, was already a good distance away from the island, refusing to do so, telling Law to instead trust in them. From the freezing North Blue until now, they have all survived. As the two fled, Beppo to himself would beg Law not to die. And so just like the Kid Pirates, the Heart Pirates have been utterly crushed and humiliated by the might of a Yonko. But at least Law managed to do some actual damage and got away. As for where Beppo might be taking law, as a mink, Zoe might be a pretty safe bet. And since it's now being ruled by Carrot, there's even more to look forward to there. The remaining members of the Heart Pirates may end up enslaved or used as bait. Let me know what you think, along with how you feel about Law versus Blackbeard being off panel like this. As always, I'm Slice of Otaku. Thank you all so much for watching and have an awesome day. I love you.